now we are going to move into the second half of our program here for the awards honoring our closing night film, Breaking Fast. And we're going to start by taking a look at that trailer here.
Don't let last year define who you are this year. Start new. Start fresh.
You know I can't work out during Ramadan. I get headaches.
This is Cal.
This is Mo, my best friend. He's a doctor. Did I mention he's a single doctor?
Not jinx this thing that isn't even a thing.
So you are interested?
I'm not saying that.
How often are you two breaking fast?
I don't know, like every night?
Every night?
You mean to tell me your immigrant mother would allow you to be like this and have no opinion about it?
My immigrant mother is nothing like what you see on TV.
What I know is that a gay Arab Muslim guy in WeHo probably knows what it's like to have people make assumptions about him.
You've been dealing with all of this alone?
Just be open. Be honest.
I'm scared.
You deserve to be loved.
Yeah, so even that's such a mystery.
Awesome. Amazing. All right, so now I'm going to turn the reins back over to Mr. Gary Kramer.
Okay, well, so I'm here to present Haaz Sleiman with his award for acting. And I first met Haaz back in 2007 in Philadelphia. He was here promoting The Visitor. We talked about drumming and Fela and bonded over that. I was very excited to hear he was going to play Momo in, who was the first openly gay Muslim character on TV in Nurse Jackie. The groundbreaking role was short-lived, however, and I was sort of disappointed. Sleiman said he was asked by showrunners to be more flamboyant as Momo in the pilot. He was uncomfortable with that, and the stereotypical representation, he refused and was replaced, which only made me love him more. For championing, you know, the character as opposed to the director or the showrunner's decisions to try and play it to a stereotype. But I was very happy to see Haaz again in Dorfman in Love, a charming downtown LA romantic comedy, and then playing gay in Those People, a queer romantic drama. He was irresistible in both. But I hadn't had a chance to talk to him again. So I think it was around late 2019, he was doing something for another festival, and I reconnected with him for an interview. What was supposed to be a 20-minute chat turned into a 3.5-hour conversation and a bromance that has been going strong for a little more than a year now. It was in that interview that he told me about Little America, his Apple TV series, and Breaking Fast. I couldn't wait to see both, and I was, you know, asking him, like, send me screeners, send me links, I want to know what you're doing. And both were worth the wait. I saw them earlier this year. And when we were talking, I said to Haaz, you've developed sort of a niche playing queer and/or Arab characters in your career of late, but you work against playing stereotypes. And he was really like taken aback by that question, because he says, yes, a lot of my roles are based on either being gay or being Muslim or Arab. He was reluctant to take on terrorist roles like he did in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. But he told me he'd welcome the opportunity to do a drag role or play a butch or straight romantic lead. But casting directors hesitate to hire openly gay Arab actors, and Sleiman's often pigeonholed. And I think that's sort of a shame, because he's so much more than what he plays. But that branding has worked in his favor, playing Mo in Breaking Fast. Sleiman embraces not only the queer and Arab aspects of his identity, but also his masculine and feminine sides. Mo acts gushy with his potential new boyfriend, especially when he feigns the Lois Lane role in Superman, and he's charming. Sleiman's a tremendous flirt in real life, I should tell you, and I keep telling him I'm taken, but he just doesn't seem to get it. But as good as an actor as he is, exposing his character's vulnerability on screen, he's quite shy and sensitive off screen, save the flirting. But he's fearless. He admits to being unafraid of being judged or seen as weak. He hopes his performances will inspire viewers. And he does this because he felt a lack of positive role models growing up watching American film and television shows in Lebanon. But like it or not, he's become a role model. And for all his pride in playing these characters and being focused on changing and challenging how gay and Arab characters are perceived, I'm going to congratulate him on his inspiring career and present him with the 2020 qFLIX XL Artistic Achievement in Acting Award.
Well, thank you so much for this incredible acknowledgement and for recognizing simply the importance of authentic representation of the queer community in film. And Gary, James, and Bill, and the rest of the qFLIX family, really thank you for your love. And I got to give a shout out to the writer-director Mike Mosallam for having faith in me to bring his protagonist, Mo, to life in Breaking Fast. I simply share this with you, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Haaz. Now I just realized I've been butchering Mike Mosallam's last name. Several. I was worried about saying your last name the whole time, Haaz, and then I
Yeah.
butchered poor Mike's last name. All right.
You're forgiven. It's a tricky one, though. Even I get it wrong sometimes.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. At least we got it correctly spelled on the trophy there, right? I hope.
Yes, it's perfect.
So speaking of Mike, as we saw earlier, now we can add to his list. He is an award-winning short filmmaker. We can add that to his repertoire of being a writer, a director, a producer, and even a sometime actor. And if you happen to come across a movie called Stags, right, Mike?
Oh God, how dare you?
Hey, you're here for me. You might even see Mike on screen. So there's some interesting stuff, but I don't want to go too much into that. So in addition to Brothers, this Breaking Fast actually existed as a short film originally. And then due to the tremendous success and being in festivals and all that, spreading the word and getting all that initial reaction, led to the creation of this feature-length film and to his first time director award for Breaking Fast. So thank you so much, Mike. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you to you and to everyone at qFLIX, to Gary. Should I hold it up? Like,
sure. We spell it right? Let me say, there we go.
Yes, it's perfect. It's perfect. You know, it's an honor to be recognized. It's an honor to be recognized alongside my friend and the star of this film, Mr. Haaz Sleiman.
Wow.
Every time you say his name, you know, his appearance. That's
right. Yeah, blame it.
You know, obviously making films, especially indie ones, certainly takes a village, and this one is no exception. I'm obviously, this being my first, really special for me, and I have to thank the incredible producing team, Seth, Sarah, Alex, Bay, Davin, our brilliant DP, Anka, who was my eyes for this film, and who, you know, really made me feel okay to not know the names of camera lenses. Our casting director, our editor, Mike Hugo, our composer, Omar Fadel. It was a real labor of love for everybody involved, and it was a really special. I especially want to thank the cast of Arab, non-Arab, Muslim, non-Muslim, queer, non-queer actors who trusted me, who went on this journey with me, and who were truly the greatest vessels through which these characters could come to life. I'm most grateful for the warm reception that this film has received from great festivals like qFLIX, the outpour of praise and generously kind words that we got from audiences. Really means the most to me, because I set out to make a film that looked like a version of myself, a version of my friends, and to have people say back to me that they finally felt themselves represented on screen means, you know, means everything to me, because that's really what we're trying to do is fill a void. I was going to say fill a hole, but I don't think this is the crowd for that. But fill a void of representation, queer representation, Muslim, Arab representation. So, I'm so grateful. I especially would like to shout out my beloved Tata, who loved me unconditionally and still finds way of showing it, just like moments like this. But thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, qFLIX. Thank you, Gary, for being such an incredible champion of this film and wonderful ally. And what an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, we're going to turn back the floor over to Mr. Gary. He's going to ask some of his questions, and then we'll open up to everyone else for their questions as well.
Yeah, so Mike, congratulations on both of your awards tonight. You're going home double-handed. You created a film about gay Arabs, and I want to talk about making that true to your community and universal for people who are unfamiliar with Muslim religion and customs. My fasting experience is Yom Kippur, so Ramadan is a whole new world for me. And yet I felt I learned so much, and I could do it for a month.
Come on, we'll do it together. I think you could.
So could you talk about that and making your story sort of both personal and universal at the same time?
Well, I think what makes it universal is how personal it is at times, and how specific, rather than personal, it's really specific and authentic to a world that I don't think many of us are, many of the viewers are probably exposed to, but it's such a commonplace thing for me. Probably, and in a lot of times I would say Haaz and Amin and Patrick and so many of the, and Rola, so many of the great Arab, sometimes Muslim actors who were involved in this, some of whom were queer, some of whom were not. But, Ramadan is such a specific time culturally, beyond it being sort of as a religious celebration. And I think I grew up with it. I grew up having iftar every night with my family. I grew up breaking my fast on dates. And so to put in those little nuances, I don't even know if people would notice this, but in the film, Haaz prays, and when he bows his head, he prays, his head touches a little stone. That's a stone that's personal to me from my pilgrimage to Mecca. But like, even those kinds of things get called out by people who are like, oh, he's Shia. I understand that because that's what I know. So I think it's even in those subtle details that really help cultivate a very specific lens through which we created this film. And I think that lens created a universal one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think the film has a brilliant romantic comedy setup in that, the two characters have to get to know each other over dinner rather than, jump right into bed, because, you have to be pure. And I think that's brilliant. I think it worked really well. And you allowed us to get to know the characters that way.
Thank you.
Haaz, to you, how did you identify with Mo in this film?
You can call him Mohammed, that's his name.
Yeah, exactly. Mo is short for Muhammad, right? Yeah, exactly. We're not like, Mo is definitely not me and I'm not Mo. However, not unlike Mo, I am Arab and I am Arab American and I am also gay. I'm openly gay. I was raised Muslim. So we have a lot in common, and not to also forget that me and Mike, kind of like, to me, he's family in a way. I've known Mike since my time in Michigan. Actually, I first moved from Lebanon to Michigan, to Dearborn, where all the Arabs are. That's where I actually first knew of Mike, and Mike knew of me. And before I even got into acting. And so for me, this whole thing, it's like almost like a full circle. And there's a lot about it that goes above and beyond just portraying Mo. Like, all of it felt very personal to me, like just being a part of it. And then just having Mike entrusting me in portraying the protagonist of his baby, like that his Breaking Fast was his baby, like his firstborn child, essentially. All of it had like many special meanings to it, all in all, more than usual, I would say, for me.
Yeah, no, and I think it comes across in your performance is that you are able to convey the reality of this character, even though he's like you in some respects and not like you in a lot of respects.
Right. Like, let's not forget it's a rom-com, and comedy is, You know, it's actually more difficult and more challenging than drama. And for me, drama, like, it comes easily for me. I think because because of the life that I've had. The life that I've had has been very melodramatic, to say the least. So I tend to gravitate to drama more, and I'm comfortable expressing vulnerability in that sense. But then in comedy, it's a whole different ballgame. And then having Mike be the director really helped a lot, tremendously for me. But it was a challenge, to say the least. And I, you know, as an artist, I have integrity in the sense that I'm always about showing the truth, no matter what project I'm part of, and the character, whether the character is straight, gay, bi, doesn't matter. There's an integrity in terms of my approach, and that is to show the truth, no matter how ugly, no matter how beautiful, no matter how uncomfortable. That is always my job, and hopefully in the hopes that I touch and move people. And so I would say Breaking Fast was no different in that aspect. But however, having Mike be the director, he's really good with comedy, and it's kind of his favorite genre. Am I right, Mike? That comedy tends to be sort of more, if you're,
yeah, I love comedy.
Like specifically physical comedy. I was surprised when I was started to like rehearse with Mike, that discovery that he had the love that he had for physical comedy, which really helped a lot during filming, because physical comedy, let's just say, it's not my forte.
Well, comedy is a lot of timing, and it's a lot of tone too. You know, how you read a line, how you behave, what your body language or expressions are. And I think, I mean, in this, it's wonderful. I mean, you have a lot of good eye rolls, you know?
Yeah, well,
here's an audience secret. Some of those were not during takes. Some of those were at me, and we just used them in the film.
No, but like Mike's, to give, you know, credit to Mike, like he's like, you have the biggest eyes, and whenever you open them wide, like that's really funny. So he capitalized on that, if you like pay attention in the film. You know, but I've actually played, like, I've been, you know, Nurse Jackie is a comedy, Dorfman in Love was a rom-com where I played a straight character, heterosexual, and I sold all of, like, both of them, like, in terms of portraying those characters. However, what's different about Breaking Fast was that element of physical comedy was really new for me. And I was really frightened in the beginning. I almost like, Mike felt it, and he said, look, if you're hesitant about this and you're not sure about like going for this, look, it's fine. I'll figure it out, but please, I won't hold it against you. Like, it's fine. It's all good. And as soon as he said that, like, I immediately went into empathy mode where I was like, no, I gotta, like, you know, I gotta give it my all. I gotta like look out for him and just make sure that whatever I can do to support him in telling the story just really kicked in for me. And I actually decided, okay, I'm gonna go in like all the way. It's either all the way or not. And him doing that gave me the permission to sort of surrender to the process.
Yeah, no, and you did well. I mean, I think the tone of the film works because you're constantly sort of recalibrating where Mo is at each time. You know, it's like, does he love me? Is this a thing? You know,
right.
And how do I?
Right, and it's also like Mo is very uncomfortable because it's Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, and the whole thing with the romance is like throwing him off. So that also probably, you know, was a good thing, you know, in a sense that in alignment with the character in that sense. But however, I have to say though, again, like it really meant a lot to me, for me to be a part of this. And I really was determined to give my all. And I'm glad that you guys think it paid off. And I'm grateful that it's well received. And, you know, as a result, Mike is getting the acknowledgement he deserves, you know. I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of Mike and what he's been able to accomplish. I'm surprised by it as well. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be honest about it. Pleasantly surprised, Mike.
Thank you, Haaz. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mike, what can you say about the different kinds of masculinity in the film? I mean, they're characters who are passing, they're characters who are closeted, they're characters who are flamboyant. Being gay and Muslim can be very difficult, giving assumptions on religion and sexuality. And you sort of show different, you know, flavors and colors and styles, and, you know, and I like that about the film, that I didn't feel I was seeing a monolithic characters here.
Great, because obviously any of the identifiers listed are not monoliths. So that's very encouraging that you didn't see that. I don't know if I was specifically thinking about the spectrum of masculinity for the characters. I sort of left that to the actors as much as I could, but I think it was really the spectrum of experiences that might that might influence those characters and their life journeys and what they're going on. And I think, you know, a character like Hassan, the character, not the actor, but who is really, really struggling between cultural influence over his faith and the community that he longs to sort of be a part of and express himself honestly and authentically. I think there is, like, just generally with people who fall into that bucket, there is this sense of, quote, acting in a way that sort of hides themselves or covers themselves up. And I think when you are somebody like Sam and you're fine living on a spectrum, you're comfortable with yourself and embracing yourself, and your relationship with your faith is your own, and nobody else is going to come in between that, and you have embraced, you know, your community, and you know, I think the spectrum of masculinity comes based on really the experience that you're living. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and I think, and that's, I mean, and the same question to you, Haaz. I mean, the masculinity of the character. You know, I mean, yes, he's funny and he's smart and he's a doctor and he's anxious. Can you talk about playing that, because there is a sort of a comedic, romantic, you know, quality to it, but he's also very grounded, and I like that he's sort of sensible. I think that's what I identify with, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
who just sort of, he does almost have his shit together.
well, I mean, there are a lot of qualities about Mo that I wish I had. Like, I wish I was a doctor. I wish I had my shit together, excuse my French, like Mo did in the film. I wish I was as clean and organized as he was, and like, you know, with the food thing, like how thoughtful he was with food. And actually, you know, again, like, you know, you're asking about the masculine, feminine. I don't think about that so much because for me, like, I'm a gay man, right? But I have a very interesting, unique balance of, or an interesting combination of my masculine, feminine energy. And one can argue, you know, oh, I have more of a masculine energy, or one can argue, I can say, no, I actually have more of a feminine energy. And in fact, I feel like I feel more like a woman and I think more like a woman. But I'm actually pretty masculine because I had to, like, put on this show when I was in Lebanon. It was my first acting gig, really, when I was in Lebanon growing up as a teenager. And I said to my family, I wanted to move to America. I wanted to be a recording artist. And then they were like immediately, oh, no way. So you can go and pursue your freakish desires, you know, between goats, you know, meaning like, we know, you know, what's going on here with you. So I was like, oh yeah. So I immediately had a girlfriend. I bought a motorcycle. I befriended like bad boys from the streets. I put on the ultimate show to show them that I'm this masculine dude. But then over the years, it became my truth. You know, that masculine side that I had nurtured out of survival, the need to survive, out of the need to get the hell out of there so I can take care of myself finally. It became part of my truth, and I had embraced it. And in a way, I feel I'm lucky because now I can totally play straight heterosexual roles and pull it off.
Yeah, you
and
can
so
tap into it.
Yeah, and so I would say, like, I look at it in this way. I think I even look at the queer community. We're not one thing. Whether we're talking about, like, you know, gay, lesbians, you know, trans, we're not one thing. We're so many different, you know, palettes of that thing. You know, for instance, there are those gay men, some gay men are into sports. I mean, I hate sports, don't get me wrong, but I've actually befriended a few gay friends who love sports. And I couldn't understand that, or even like gay Republicans, I couldn't understand that. I still don't understand that. But you know what I mean? Like, I think it's not one thing, we're not one thing. And I always knew that. And I kind of knew it even more when I moved here to the States. And using myself as an example, you know, now that I'm out and I can say that, you can look at me and you can say, well, I'm not really effeminate. I'm not like this one thing or this one idea of what gay men should be, or, you know, are expected to be. And so why should Breaking Fast or my portrayal of Mo be any different? So I kind of like wanted to walk that sort of almost like neutral line.
Yeah.
Where the vulnerability maybe will show more of Mo's feminine side when he's vulnerable or he's feeling a little bit sort of, you know, fragile, versus when he's, you know, he has to be like grounded, is more maybe somehow more masculine. But then again, it could flip. That could be the opposite. You know, the vulnerable could be more masculine, and then vice versa. The grounded part could be more feminine, because I have experienced that in my life as a gay man.
Yeah, but I think it works because the sensitivity your character has in some scenes, or the anxiety he has, you know, he becomes more confident. His arc grows. I mean, you know, when he's getting on stage and singing, it's like he's comfortable doing it. When he's singing previously, he's not comfortable doing it.
Right.
So there are measures of I guess how he becomes more and more comfortable with himself over the course of the film, because he's feeling this love. You know, and he feels.
Yeah, I feel like I think it's important for me. I think in general now, like if I'm gonna play a queer character, it's important for me to not anymore think of the masculine and feminine as two separate things. It's more of a dance between the masculine and feminine energy. For me, as an artist, that is very important. Unless the character that I'm portraying is specifically feminine for a reason, for the storyline itself. Then that would be different. However, and generally speaking, it's important for me to like, it's more of a dance. And even with the heterosexual characters, like if you look at my portrayal of Cookie in Dorfman in Love, you totally buy that he's heterosexual, but you can tell that he's extra sensitive because he's an artist, he's a painter. I mean, I have one of my best friends, she's Lebanese, she's married to a Lebanese guy who's Christian. I swear to you, the first time I met him, I thought he was gay. He was so effeminate. I mean, he is effeminate. He's a very effeminate man who's heterosexual. So what I'm trying to say, it's a bigger umbrella than we're making it out to be, that whole talk about masculine, feminine, because even amongst heterosexuals, there are heterosexuals who are even sometimes more effeminate than gay men who are effeminate or flamboyant.
Let me get a question to Mike. I want to talk about creating the tone in the film, which is sort of broad and funny and then sweet and sentimental. Can you discuss that? Because I mean, obviously you're using a lot of rom-com tropes, but I want to talk about, I guess, sort of how you balance the tone of the film, because it has serious moments and, you know, slapstick.
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, the film for me, the tone of the film for me sort of is based on two genres that I love. The first being, and it's not by coincidence at all that all of the sort of rom-com tropes are built into the. I'm so sorry. It's just my adoring fans.
Don't blame me now. If you blame me, I'm
sorry. You know, all of the obvious rom-com tropes that are by design, and also a very specific pattern or tempo that you find in the musical theater, which is a huge influence for me personally. And I think, you know, like for me, those tones are so indicative of so much of how I learned how to communicate with people on a platonic level, on a romantic level, and rom-coms. I mean, you know, I know I've said this a lot, but you know, it was Julia Roberts who taught me about love in the 90s. So, you know, I just wanted a gay Arab Julia Roberts, and she just happens to look just like Haaz Sleiman.
That's like one of my favorite things to hear, actually.
Let me ask you, I mean, you mentioned your show tune fandom. Can you talk about using American pop culture references, the Superman, the Sound of Music in the film? I think it's interesting that, you know, we're so defined by what we watch and what we hear and what we, you know, consume, you know, culturally. Why were these the influences you used in the film? Because they're very American.
Exactly. And I think that was that was definitely one of the objectives. Who better embodies the American dream of an immigrant than Superman? I mean, he is the most foreign alien to our country, and somebody who I grew up revering. And there is, you know, that sort of subtle juxtaposition in there. And also The Sound of Music, which is again, it's an American classic. It's something that every household can relate to, and I think everybody at some point, with the exception of my producer Seth Hauer, I think has seen Maria twirling on the mountain. But I'll fix that before we get our wide.
Well, and Haaz, I know you love The Sound of Music. I mean, I know that's.
Oh my God, yeah.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not exaggerating. Julie Andrews was my icon until Madonna replaced her, but I mean, she still is my icon. No, I still love Julie Andrews. Like,
they're both alive.
Should they do a versus?
Time.
Should they do one of those verses? You ever watch those verses? Should it be Madonna versus Julie Andrews?
No, because then I wouldn't know who to root for, because I still love both of them equally, actually. But, you know, and, you know, like for me, like, yeah, The Sound of Music, that's another thing about why I love Breaking Fast so much. And I love that Mike was able to do that in this film, like, which is basically is probably a testament to Mike's big inner child. And, you know, I have a big inner child. Mike has a big inner child. And then I'm telling you, when I read that script, my inner child just wanted to come out and play. What? The Sound of Music? Are you kidding me? I get to talk about it. Sorry, that big musical West End Story. I get to talk about that. Superman, like I also was a big fan of Superman growing up. I mean, kind of who wasn't, you know? So Marvel, all of these elements like that Mike had brought in there, whether he did that intentionally or not, like it just really brings out your inner child. And I think that makes it so pure for me, you know, and I love that aspect of this, you know, that Mike was able to do that, whether intentionally or not, I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Haaz. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Are you a good cook? You said you were going to promise to make me something when you came.
If I love the person, I'm an amazing cook. If I don't love you so much, so. I have to love you. If I love you, then if I'm really genuinely like love you, and I do, Gary, genuinely love you, then you're gonna have the most delicious Lebanese vegan dishes if you want. I'm gonna have meat in there if you want. Absolutely. I mean, I'm good if it's someone that I care about, because I do believe that. I don't know, like that, you know, your love somehow translates into the food.
Absolutely.
And it's like it's a cultural thing, right, Mike? You know, it's like it's also in our culture.
That's exactly right. Aklat al-hub.
Right. Are you a good cook, Mike?
I love to cook. I'll leave the good.
Quarantine's been great because you can just stay home and cook all the time.
Oh my God. Oh, so much good cooking. Yes, I love to cook.
Okay. My last question, Haaz, is what can you say you learned about relationships making Breaking Fast?
It's actually beautiful when you are vulnerable and are able to connect with someone from a pure place, when you allow, let's say, the connection to go as far as feeling safe enough to let your inner child come out and play with the other person. Like, to be that vulnerable, to be that open, can lead to magic. And I think Breaking Fast sort of like really highlights that in a beautiful way, because also, like you said, brilliantly so, that Mike said it during the month of Ramadan. And Mo, the protagonist, is a devout Muslim. So it's very important that he doesn't break, you know, the traditions in terms of like no sex, you know. And so that forces the two characters to really connect at a much deeper, maybe purer, like a place, from a pure place, rather than like the stereotype where usually gay men, you know, jump right away and have sex, you know, without really giving a chance to connect on a deeper level.
Okay, I have a couple questions from the audience, and if you have any as the conversation continues, please put them in the chat. The dramatic scene when the two main characters argue in front of the hospital about Mo's inability to connect emotionally resonated with someone who wrote this. How men would rather keep conversations superficial instead of connecting deeper. What inspired that part of the storytelling? And I'm guessing that's for Mike.
Yeah, I think that whole conversation was inspired by our human inability to get out of our own ways, our human ability to easily sabotage something that is really good standing in front of us, just asking us to love them. I think that there is a lot of times in my own personal life, and I think in the lives of people that I, my circle of people, where it's very clear that if we could just let our egos go just a little bit, we might open ourselves up to a whole world of new possibilities. And I think that is all that Cal is asking Mo to do, is just to let go of the narrative that he needs to control and just be open to the possibility of other narratives.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the relationship issue with the film is that, you know, they both have these secrets and they both can't seem to come together until they do, you know, not to spoil it. One of the other questions was about major mishaps. What was the craziest mishap while filming?
I see one of our producers, Sarah Bazzi, has chimed in, and I concur with what she said. Probably the craziest mishap was the rain that occurred when we were filming in our 2 exterior WeHo days. Ironically, those were the same 2 days of our shoot on the short where it rained in West Hollywood, in exactly those same scenes. So, you know, but I'll tell you, I said this in the short, and I think it's true in the feature as well. It added for some beautiful romanticism, a great and free wet down of the streets. So, so that was great. In the film, you'll notice in one scene, Haaz's character Mo says, I think it's gonna rain, we should get an umbrella. So it's a line that we needed to improvise on the day. And then what, you know, in watching the film back recently, I noticed kind of the beauty of the umbrella in the scene where they're walking down the park and they're forced to create intimacy in a space where they have tried to sort of create distance. And so whether it's certainly not intentional, but glad that what was able to come out of that was this beautiful sort of romantic moment that they had sort of early on in the film.
Speaking of the short, as I said, I teach and curate shorts, and I'm always curious when people turn shorts into features, what prompts you to do that? Is the short designed as a calling card? Is the feature something that you thought, well, I need the story to continue? I like the way you sort of didn't replicate the first 20 minutes of the film as the short. It's there, but it's not entirely there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we set out to, the short version of Breaking Fast was the absolute first thing I had ever attempted to write. And it really came out of a conversation with a good friend of mine, Michael Lannon, the creator of Looking, who essentially was like asking me who represented me or my friends' journeys on film and TV. And the reality was I couldn't think of anyone. And he said, you should write that story. And I thought, no way, I would never. And the very next day I handed my best friend a script and said, read this, what does this mean? Looking was actually in their second season of writing on the lot, and Seth Howard, the producer of this film, was an associate producer on Looking. And I said, hey Seth, would you ever consider reading this, giving me some feedback? And we met after he read it and he said, we need to do this, let's do this. And I think having him immediately champion the project and then sort of bring along so many great people who in a way legitimized it to me other than just sort of another short film. And it wasn't until the response of the short that we started to even fantasize about what a feature would look like. It was never intended to be a feature until after we were fortunate enough to go to Cannes with it and some other film festivals. And we started just mapping out, you know, the short is about the first night of Ramadan, and the device was there. The convention was so easy there for us that we started to think about what does the entire month look like, and, you know, what does the first day look like versus the last day. And so in a lot of ways, and it structured itself. And here we are, and I sometimes think about it. It makes me a little emotional to actually think about it. I can't believe this journey from start to finish. It's kind of crazy.
And given, you know, Mike's background as well, let's not forget, he is, after all, a Muslim Arab American. So it probably, you know, if I may, Mike, on your behalf, you know, also just because he grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, doesn't, by no means it meant that he had it easier than, you know, someone growing up in Lebanon like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, the film is certainly not autobiographical in terms of experience, but it is definitely a portrait of an idyllic world that I hope will continue to sort of, and I hate this word, but continue to be normalized, so that it just gets easier and easier by the more and more that we tell stories like this.
Yeah, I had a question here. There's a fight between Mo and Sam near the end of the film. How difficult was it to film acting-wise, and what was the point of the director is trying to convey? And it's I guess to Haaz first, and then to Mike.
The fight scene between me and Sam, Mo and Sam, it was not difficult whatsoever for me, at least on my end, because, you know, that happens with real best friends always. That's something normal. And actually, and when it does happen with best friends, it's a beautiful thing, because it always leads to something beautiful. Like, there's always love in there. So I think in that scene, even though they fought, it was full of love. It was filled with love, actually. And so for me, I actually would say it was very moving to film that scene with, you know, I mean, the actor who portrayed Sam.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the point for me was very much along the lines of what Haaz just said. I think that friendships, best friendships, can in a lot of ways feel like relationships. They can be like romantic relationships. They can be as intimate as romantic relationships without the physical intimacy. And what I love so much about Sam and Mo, and I cannot stress enough the love that I have for both of those actors. Amin El-Gamal is a tour de force in this film and was so brilliant. What I love is that here are two queer Arab Muslim men with hugely different ideologies along the spectrum, and they have this brotherly love for one another. Ooh, Philadelphia, brotherly love, yes. And they like really care about one another. And sometimes we hurt the people that we love, and sometimes we can't see past our own ego. And I love that scene so much, because I think so often the trope of who Sam is in rom-coms sort of gets dismissed to be the comic foil, and to have him in a scene like that where he actually ends up becoming so much of the spine of the film and the voice, the inner voice of Mo's consciousness, I think is really important. And I cannot say enough how brilliant those actors were in that moment, and so many others.
Well, I hate to get you mad at me, but I think we have to turn it back over to James and Bill. But thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your film and your awards. And we look forward to seeing what you both do next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Really, thank you for your love.
Appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, guys. We appreciate it. Thank you for hosting for us, Gary, for both of our talkbacks. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.